From broke musician to gold rush millionaire, the unexpected rise of Rick Ness. If you've ever watched Gold Rush, then you know Rick Ness is no stranger to striking gold. But long before he became a familiar face on the hit Discovery Channel show, Rick was living a very different life. Broke on the road, chasing dreams as a musician with zero experience in mining. Believe it or not, Rick didn't start out panning for gold. He was the bassist for a bluegrass punk band called the .357 String Band, spending his early years touring the country, living out of suitcases and playing gigs wherever they could. It was a tough life, and like many musicians, Rick struggled to make ends meet. Everything changed in 2012. While performing at a comedy show in Alaska, Rick crossed paths with Parker Schnabel, one of Gold Rush's breakout stars. The two hit it off immediately. Parker, sensing Rick's grit and determination, offered him a spot on his mining crew despite Rick having zero mining experience. It was a leap of faith. Rick traded his bass guitar for bulldozers and excavators, diving headfirst into the intense world of gold mining. It wasn't glamorous, and it definitely wasn't easy. The Klondike, where the crew mined, is one of the most unforgiving places on Earth. Freezing temperatures, relentless weather, constant equipment breakdowns. It was survival, not just mining. Rick had to learn everything from scratch, operating heavy machinery, managing dirt piles, and extracting gold with precision. But what he lacked in experience, he made up for with raw determination. He wasn't just trying to prove himself to the crew or the viewers. He was trying to prove something to himself. And that drive has paid off. Rick's hard work and resilience eventually led him to strike out on his own. Over time, he became one of Gold Rush's standout personalities and, more impressively, one of its wealthiest miners. But his rise wasn't built on luck. It was forged in sweat, dirt, and the bitter cold of the Yukon. His story is a powerful reminder that sometimes all it takes is one bold decision to change the course of your life. Rick Ness didn't just mine gold, he mined a whole new destiny. Rick Ness didn't start out as a miner. In fact, years before he ever struck gold. On TV, he was just a struggling musician, traveling from gig to gig, barely scraping by. But life has a funny way of leading people down unexpected paths, and for Rick, that detour led straight into the high-stakes, grueling world of gold mining. Once he joined the cast of Gold Rush, Rick had to adapt fast. Gold mining isn't for the faint of heart. It's long hours, brutal weather, and back-breaking labor. But Rick embraced it. More than that, he committed himself to learning every aspect of the operation. Working under Parker Schnabel, one of the youngest but most experienced miners in the game, Rick quickly picked up not just the mechanics of the job, but the psychology behind it. One of the toughest lessons Rick had to learn was how to function under intense pressure. In gold mining, one mistake can cost thousands or even millions of dollars. Every machine breakdown, every wrong move has consequences. Rick was thrust into a world where survival depended on grit, adaptability, and thick skin. And to make things even more challenging, he had to learn how to work as part of a team under high-stress conditions. In the Klondike, tempers can flare just as quickly as the weather can turn. It's not just about mining, it's about managing people, emotions, and egos. But one lesson stood above the rest: patience. There were stretches where Rick and his crew would dig for days, sometimes even weeks, and come up with absolutely nothing. But that's the gamble you take in the gold business. The moment when you do hit pay dirt, when that first shimmer of gold appears in the sluice box, makes every dry spell worth it. Rick once said, "You've got to have thick skin and a lot of persistence because nothing worth having comes easy." And he lived that truth every day in the dirt fields of the Yukon. As Rick grew in skill and confidence, his ambitions expanded. He started to wonder what life would be like if he wasn't just a crew member taking orders but the one giving them. That turning point came in Season 9 of Gold Rush, when Rick made a decision that shocked many fans. He chose to leave Parker's crew and start his own mining operation. To outsiders, it looked like madness. Parker had been his mentor, his guide, through the unforgiving world of gold mining. Leaving that safety net to go solo was like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. The risks were enormous. Rick wasn't just stepping away from a steady job. He was stepping into the unknown, putting everything on the line. Starting his own mine meant handling every detail. Scouting new land, curing equipment, hiring a crew, and financing the entire operation out of pocket. If something went wrong and in gold mining, something always goes wrong, it would be his problem to fix and his bank account to bleed. As Rick admitted himself, when you're the boss, every mistake is yours to own. There's no one else to blame. The pressure was intense. Fans watched closely as Rick prepared for his first season as a boss. The odds were against him. He had no safety net, no backup, and no guarantee that he'd even find gold. He had to build everything from scratch: his operation, his team, his credibility. All while battling unpredictable Klondike weather, failing equipment, and mounting expenses. Despite the overwhelming challenges, Rick never wavered. "I'm betting on myself," he declared. And viewers rallied behind him. After all, everyone loves a good underdog story. Rick's first season as a mine boss was a roller coaster. He had full control, which meant he could finally make decisions without asking for permission. But that freedom came at a cost. Being the boss also meant dealing with every problem head on. And in the mining world, problems come fast and hard. Machines broke down regularly, weather conditions made work nearly impossible. And each day off the job meant lost revenue. But perhaps Rick's biggest challenge wasn't the equipment or even the gold. It was managing people, leading a team. In one of the most stressful environments on Earth isn't easy. Tensions flared. Arguments broke out. Rick had to learn quickly how to earn his crew's trust and respect, not just as a peer, but as their leader. He wasn't perfect. Mistakes were made. Money was lost. But Rick kept going. Every setback became a lesson, every obstacle a new test of his resolve. Through sheer determination, he managed to survive that first solo season. And in doing so, he proved to everyone, most importantly, himself, that he wasn't just a miner, he was a boss. Rick Ness bet on himself when the odds were stacked against him, and he didn't fold. Whether he's mining gold or facing life's curveballs, one thing's for sure: Rick Ness doesn't back down from a challenge. The pressure to find gold was always looming over Rick Ness like a dark cloud. In the mining world, there's a saying: if you don't find gold, you don't eat. For Rick, this wasn't just a dramatic phrase, it was reality. Every day that passed without a gold discovery felt like a ticking time bomb. The financial clock was always running. The margin for error was razor thin. That sense of urgency wasn't just felt behind the scenes, it bled into every episode, adding intensity for viewers at home. Would this be the day Rick struck it rich, or the day everything fell apart? The suspense was thick, and so was the tension among his crew. Rick found enough gold to keep things moving, but there was always the underlying question: was it enough? Was his dream of becoming a respected mining boss about to crumble under the weight of reality? But here's where Rick's character shined. Setbacks, sleepless nights, broken machinery, and a dwindling budget, none of it shook him from his purpose. Not a quitter, he said in an interview. "I've never been one to back down from a challenge. That grit, that stubborn refusal to throw in the towels, what kept him going during the darkest days of the season." And then it happened. After weeks of sifting through dirt, battling brutal weather, and navigating an endless stream of operational problems, Rick and his crew finally struck gold. Not just a few flakes, this was the real thing. The moment was electric. You could see it in Rick's eyes: relief, joy, exhaustion, and triumph, all rolled into one. For the first time since going solo, the gamble was beginning to pay off. That first major gold discovery wasn't just about the money. It was vindication. Proof that all the sacrifices, doubts, and risks had not been in vain. It stepped out of the shadow of Parker Schnabel, taken control of his own destiny, and made it work on his own terms. That moment marked a turning point. Rick Ness was no longer just a sidekick or a brave fool trying to go solo. He had made his mark. He had earned his stripes as a legitimate mining boss. But the gold, as exciting as it was, also served as a sobering reminder. Finding gold is only half the battle. The real challenge lies in what comes after: keeping the machines running, managing an unpredictable crew, dealing with rising fuel costs, repairs, and endless paperwork. It's a non-stop balancing act between production and expenses. And one wrong move could wipe out weeks of hard work. Rick himself admitted that his first season as a boss was far from perfect. He didn't hit the kind of jackpot that would allow him to kick back and coast. But what he did find was enough to keep the dream alive. And sometimes, that's all it takes. Just enough success to fight another day. Looking back, it's easy to see why most people would have quit. Equipment broke down constantly. Weather delays drained both morale and money. Financial stress loomed large over every decision. Rick had every reason in the world to walk away. And yet he stayed. There were days I seriously thought about quitting, he confessed later, but I'm too stubborn for that. I knew we'd find gold, it was just a matter of time, and that persistence. It paid off handsomely. Yes, the gold brought in revenue. But that wasn't the only thing that filled Rick Ness's bank account. So forget, he's not just a miner, he's a reality TV star. And in the world of long-running shows, like Gold Rush, that comes with its own financial rewards. When a series lasts as long as Gold Rush has, the stars aren't just working for exposure anymore. They're negotiating salaries, getting bonuses, and sometimes even earning royalties from reruns and merchandise. Rick's face became a familiar one on TV screens across the world, and with that recognition came compensation. While Discovery Channel doesn't disclose exact salaries. That's why they reported that key cast members earn tens and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars per season. Rick's paycheck wasn't just some side hustle, it became a major source of income. Combined with his mining profits, his television appearances helped turn a once struggling musician into a bona fide success story. Of course, the fame came with its own challenges. Being in the public eye meant Rick's failures weren't just personal, they were broadcast for millions to see. But through it all, he stayed true to who he was. A hard-working, resilient guy who bet on himself and refused to give up. From living gig to gig as a bassist in a rock band to running his own gold mining operation on national television, Rick Ness's journey is nothing short of remarkable. His story is one of grit, determination, and a relentless pursuit of success, even when the odds were stacked against him. And while the gold may have made him rich, it's the journey, the risks, the setbacks, and the ultimate triumph made Rick Ness a legend in the world of Gold Rush. With fame comes opportunity, and Rick Ness certainly experienced both. His rise on Gold Rush not only made him a recognizable face around the world, but also opened doors to entirely new revenue streams far beyond gold mining. As his presence on the show grew, so did his fan base, and with it came chances for public appearances, brand endorsements, merchandise deals, and collaborations that reflected his rugged, hardworking image. Rick wasn't just a miner anymore, he was a brand, known for his laid-back demeanor combined with a fierce work ethic. Rick quickly became a fan favorite. He didn't fit the mold of the traditional TV star, and that's exactly what made him stand out. He was relatable, real, and raw, someone who didn't mind getting his hands dirty, literally and metaphorically. That kind of authentic persona is gold in the world of reality television and marketing, and Rick capitalized on it wisely. Over time, he began collaborating with various brands and companies that aligned with his public image. From outdoor gear to workwear, further boosting his income beyond what the mines could provide, of course. None of this would have been possible without the massive success of Gold Rush itself. The show became one of Discovery Channel's most-watched series, consistently pulling in millions of viewers each week. It was more than just a show, it was a cultural phenomenon. And when a show generates that kind of money and attention, the benefits don't stop at the network level. The cast members, especially the more popular ones like Rick, share in the rewards. As the show gained momentum, so did Rick's value to it. The more audiences connected with him, the more the producers leaned into his storyline, and the more he earned. It's widely speculated that the stars of Gold Rush can make anywhere from $25,000 to over $100,000 per episode, depending on their role and popularity. When you factor in multiple seasons, reruns, and residuals, that adds up to a sizable income, especially when combined with mining profits. But Rick never let the fame fool him into thinking the work was over. He knew all too well that gold mining is nothing if not unpredictable. One season you can strike it big, Rick once said, and the next you can lose everything. That kind of volatility is exactly why he never allowed himself to get too comfortable. Instead, he diversified his income sources and stayed grounded. He knew the TV money was good for now. The real test was whether he could keep the mining operation sustainable long-term. Behind the scenes, Rick's journey hasn't been as glamorous as the cameras suggest. Physical and emotional toll of gold mining, especially in the harsh, unforgiving conditions of the Klondike, is immense. In interviews, he's been candid about just how brutal it can get. People don't realize how tough this job is until you're living it. He said, "There are days you're working 18 hours straight. It's freezing cold, equipment's breaking down, you're losing money, and all you want to do is quit." Mining, especially at the scale Rick operates on, is an all-consuming job. Every day is a battle against time, machinery, and nature. And when something breaks, which it inevitably does, the cost comes straight out of Rick's pocket, whether it's a busted dozer or a fuel shortage. Each problem represents another dent in the budget and another sleepless night. Add to that the personal sacrifice. Months away from home, little contact with family or friends, isolation, and remote camps. The mental strain is relentless. Rick has openly acknowledged how hard it is to keep smiling when you're buried under stress, cold, and pressure. And yet he keeps going. "I've never been one to shy away from hard work," he says. "If you're not willing to get your hands dirty and face the obstacles head on, you're not going to make it in this business." Through all the struggles, one thing has remained constant: Rick's determination. And after years of grinding, both in front of and behind the camera, that determination has literally paid off. Today, Rick Ness's estimated net worth sits around $3 million. It's a far cry from his early days as a broke musician, traveling around in a tour van, barely making enough to get by. Most of his fortune comes from mining. Yes, but Gold Rush played a huge part. Even in seasons where he didn't hit the jackpot in the ground, the exposure and income from the show helped him stay afloat. He's managed to turn a tough, often thankless job into a sustainable career and a solid financial foundation. Not every season has been smooth. There have been setbacks, controversies, and hard times. But Rick Ness is nothing if not persistent. Whether it's another brutal winter, a financial crunch, or the weight of leadership bearing down on him, continues to push forward. And in a business where fortunes rise and fall with the temperature of the soil, that kind of tenacity might just be the most valuable asset of all. Rick Ness's journey on Gold Rush has not only earned him fame, but also a healthy payday. As one of the key figures on the long-running Discovery Channel hit, Rick reportedly earns an estimated $100,000 to $200,000 per season. Though exact figures remain under wraps, this estimate doesn't include potential bonuses, performance-based incentives, or residuals tied to the show's ratings, which have remained consistently strong over the years. But TV income is only part of the equation. Rick still makes money the old-fashioned way, digging gold out of the dirt. Mining income, though volatile, adds another significant stream of revenue. Some seasons are wildly successful. Others barely break even. It's the unpredictable nature of the job that keeps Rick grounded. He's been upfront about the financial roller coaster gold miners ride each year. "I could be worth millions today," Rick said in a candid interview. "But one bad season could wipe it all out." That honest perspective is part of what makes Rick so relatable. He doesn't flaunt his fortune or play into celebrity stereotypes. Despite the fame, he's still the same guy who once roamed around with a rock band, living gig to gig. Now, instead of chords and lyrics, his life revolves around rock and dirt, literally. Recognizing how uncertain mining can be, Rick made smart moves early on by diversifying his income. With his growing popularity on Gold Rush, he began attracting brand deals, sponsorships, public appearances, and even opportunities to promote products related to outdoor work and adventure. Companies saw in Rick an authentic figure, someone who looked the part and lived the lifestyle their customers respected. Over time, These collaborations became a reliable source of additional income. Yet, through all the exposure and success, Rick has stayed humble. He doesn't see himself as a celebrity. Okay, in his words, I didn't get into mining to be a TV star. I got into it because I love the work. The show just came with the territory. And that down-to-earth attitude continues to resonate with audiences. But now, as Rick stands at a crossroads in his career, after seasons of struggle and triumph, the question naturally arises. What's next? Having made a name for himself and achieved financial stability, Rick has begun exploring new ventures. He's hinted that he might not spend the rest of his life chasing gold in the Klondike. While his love for mining runs deep, the lifestyle is punishing. Grueling hours, isolation, extreme conditions, and the stress of keeping a business afloat year after year take a toll mentally, physically, and emotionally. Rick's openness about the darker side of the job has led to speculation that he might eventually step away from the mining life. But if he does, it won't be without a plan. There's increasing buzz that Rick may deepen his roots in the world of television and media. With his natural charisma and steady fan base, it wouldn't be a surprise to see him take on a hosting role, create a spin-off series, or even branch into documentary storytelling. Perhaps showing the realities of frontier industries, or telling stories of other blue-collar workers facing uphill battles in a world that craves authenticity. Rick has that rare marketable quality. He's real, and people connect with real. Still, if he doesn't go the Hollywood route, there's always the option of expanding his mining business. Over the past few seasons, Rick has learned an enormous amount, not just about digging, but about operations, logistics, leadership, and risk management. He's more than capable of making new claims, partnering with investors, or even managing multiple mining sites if he chooses to grow. The gold mining industry is vast, and for someone with Rick's reputation, experience, and credibility, the doors are wide open. And yet, despite all the speculation, Rick Ness has made one thing clear. He's not done digging. There's always more gold out there, he said with a grin. And as long as there's gold, I'm going to keep digging. So whether Rick's future includes bigger claims, a new show, or something entirely unexpected, now, one thing is certain, his journey isn't over. The adventure continues not just for him, but for the millions of fans who've rooted for him. From day one, from broken-down machinery to breakout TV star, from long-shot risks to legitimate riches, Rick Ness embodies what Gold Rush is all about, chasing a dream against the odds, never backing down.